I'll read it out to you because it's a good one. It's called A Day in the Life of a Disabled Person in the Throes of the Sacred. Or To Be Australian. Finally finished. Year 11, initial training essay topic. Most of that training has been ignored since it was written 14 years late and is an absolute F. It was a long night. When my nights are long, they are dark and they are darkened more, or at least that's how it feels at the moment, by the presence of others. Somewhat owing to the lack of presence of some, but that's a way longer story. So it was a hard afternoon, spent with one of those people who like talking about esoteric ideas. I have a friend who seems like he wants the secret knowledge so he can fuck his girlfriend super awesomely. Fair enough. He might not be able to. He might not be able to be honest about the disparity between how he looks and how well he can fuck for however long, which might be quite vast. I'll tell you what, he is quite a magnificent-looking Nordic type, which I regularly tell him to his face. And when I busted out the Tree of Life, it's a diagram of human qualities and relationships, material, emotional, intellectual, and idealistic. It is pretty far out, and it is as hard to understand as it is to apply. I told him he's got to start in the middle, beauty, which is fucking infuriating in its own way. Anyway, mystical diagrams aren't a good source of good humor for me, and so when I rocked down to try out doing some stand-up comedy, and bombed like an Israeli retribution bombing for a couple of lucky Hamas rockets. See, I hate modern warfare. In fact, all warfare that involved manipulation of stupid people to violent ends disagrees with me, as I am a pacifist, so in my opinion, and it is a rational opinion, I shouldn't need to argue, it doesn't need to keep happening. I am in a bad mood. Funny ain't flowing for me right now, or then. So after the hangouts backstage, and the drunken arguing, and the tears, and the, you don't get it like I do, I get it, and the video games, which as a pacifist also disagree with me, somewhat irrationally, yes I know, the sun was rising enough for me to, had risen enough for me to feel safe enough to walk to the emergency department at the local hospital and have this throat infection looked at. But this was about 5 in the morning, and seeing as how, in the distressed state, I had made the next appointment with the psychiatrist, and it had been a Tuesday, it's a long, strange process, I had forgotten all but the first initial of the day I made it, and it was now a Thursday. I also get paid on Thursdays. It makes sense for me to get psych appointments on Thursdays because I may as well just sit at home and think, because the money I get on Thursdays is more often than not spent by Saturday and may as well be spent on the same day. It is enough for necessities.
That's a long sentence.
I know. It is enough for necessities. Anyway, so after I got my throat swabbed, I have 3.5 hours to walk around waiting till the bank opens. I lost my wallet in the process of moving. I have extremely poor issues with trust. I live in a shifty time. We all do. The situation is so unflinchingly annoying to try and describe, but for too long I have, about 6 weeks, needed to actually go into the bank to get my money. I'm at least 24 hours deep in the day at this point, walking around the Lismore CBD, waiting to be able to get some money. The behaviour of the people working at the bank seems more conspiratorial than stressful. Seeing as I am a fairly regular customer at a cafe called Capella's, the very full-time waitress working there was happy to shout me eggs, Benny, and a coffee, I think, because I'm a tipper. Because I'm a tipper. It isn't necessarily necessary to tip where I live, but I do when I can, and the benefits to doing so are numerous. Anyway, after breakfast, I still have about 2 hours before the bank opens, and I walk around, bump into a friend of a friend. He is a back injury pensioner. It is a difficult life when you can cheat the system most days. I can't. I'm a pensioner as well, but my issues are emotional incontinence, not ethical. I just can't fucking handle having to work with people who listen to shit music while they don't really give a shit about what they do, only what they get paid. I get it, but I don't. I cannot labour under these sort of conditions. Fucking hell. I get to the bank, annoyingly at 9. Still, half hour to wait. So I go back to the hospital, but it's the mental health outpatients unit. It's a place people go for appointments after a mental health hospitalization, and where I'm fairly certain my psychiatrist appointment was on at 11:30. But I found out I was nearly 2 days late, off by 2.5 hours, if I remember incorrectly. Anyway, luckily I am able to see my psychiatrist anyway because I am there when community mental health opens. All I need to see him about is medication. We discussed the emotional incontinence, which I get is the case. I cry a lot. The world I live in has too much misery in it, too easily ignored by those who cannot see it. But being emotional about compassion blocking isn't much help. But emotional incontinence isn't my diagnosis. Schizophrenia is. So I am rather offended by being told I uncontrollably piss and shit out my face all the time. The opposite is as bad an issue for me. My psychiatrist is good in the sense that he smoothly and controllably let that one sink into my senses. Anyway, by the time I've talked to the man and his medical apprentice, I got a script. The bank is open and I walk there, where I think I am going to be able to activate a new ATM card, but it is the second of 3 that eventually made their way to me, so it has since been cancelled. I get money from my account eventually. It is a horrible fuck around, considering the conspiratorial feeling I get from the bank staff. The younger ones seem scared, the older ones seem evil. I go back to Capello's and pay double for my shattered breakfast so that I can get another one day, probably tomorrow. By this point, I am so extremely strung out and annoyed, and the solution to this is 2 things. Walk home and probably smoke weed, fall asleep the next day, and the next day do it again, or refuse that demon by spending the money I would spend on feeling nice in that way, which, considering the illness from which I suffer, stops being nice very quickly, and walk across the river and pay to have sex with a very, very nice lady, and I mean very, very nice. She is blonde and buxom and speaks in an Australian accent. She is exactly what I need right now, especially considering my will to transparency or emotional incontinence. I fuck up every conversation I have with women within seconds, minutes if I'm lucky. I also consider myself to be pansexual, and I think it is a good idea for a lot of young men in our culture to go through a phase like this. I am unwashed as I hadn't showered since I left the house the first time the previous day. She lets me have a long shower and starts the timer afterward. She is so friendly and so young at heart, and somewhere in the vicinity of 33 and to 39. We are in the Marrakesh. It is the Oriental room, the Islamic room, the one for guys with beards. I have a beard. The shower smells like gunpowder, and I tell her, making an anti-Islamo-fascist remark, as well as saying, "Did you guys have some kind of independence party in here recently? Must have been Guy Fawkes Day recently. Is it November? Because fireworks are one of the worst things for ex-conscripts to have to hear. I love a little random crumping artillery noise, don't you? We don't celebrate Guy Fawkes Day anymore." She comes back and says, "It just smells like a drain." It has been a long time since I have been in anything like a long-term relationship. I hated it then, and no matter how much I pine about loneliness, if I'm honest, I hate the idea of it now as well. The women who, I guess, might actually be into that kind of thing with me seem as consistently unimpressive of personality as I am reasonable at girth and duration. Very unimpressive if the primary school change room humiliation ordeal is to be revisited. These prejudices are real as they are statistically impossible, and I am as much to blame for their promulgation as any porn aficionado. At least, that's how it feels. So given that, it was nice that she was so gentle, because it really fucking sucks when they get you done and chuck you out way before your time is up, which they can do if they want/need. So in the gentle, super duper gentle sex we had, she told me a story. I asked her to, obviously, and her story went like this. This one time, I went to play with myself, masturbate. But hey, let's not just keep this totally fucked up. In the park, and a random man with a big cock just came up behind me and fucked me. I enjoyed myself very much. That was the gist of the story anyway. I tell her the story is awesome. And then I told her the story of the last time I went to the brothel. It is just as sad, but only harassment sad. Not teen can't be raped sad, which I don't know how sad I am about that. Sadness being on a case-by-case basis. Here's a link to me telling that story. Then, and so there's a link in the blog. Then when the short stack fuck was finished, and we was doing that whole post-coital cooing with the eyes and the light-skin stroking time, I asked her very nicely if she would fuck me again, and she very, very nicely obliged. She did not have to. It was a 45 minutes. I was as thankful as I could vocalize. But during this, I told her another story. It was of my first wet dream, within which, to be sure, I hid in the bushes and masturbated over my high school crush, hanging out with her friends on her way to school. I had 2 wet dreams pre-virginity loss. If you are male and you know what I'm talking about, do you regret losing your virginity now? I tell you what, they ain't what they used to be, though still is just as rare. Though not as rare as me actually getting laid as a result of sex work legalization. Male virginity loss aside, although it's nice to be laid on top of by a very beautiful woman for about 45 minutes for $200, this view is a view shared by few of my counterparts, more often men than women. Women, for the most part, seem pretty happy about this form of sexual liberalization, especially when you consider that bucks and blondes, who are pretty cool about being raped, aren't so cool about being abused, which they would be more likely to be if sex work were criminalized, which it was, and they were, and that's fucked up. So anyway, I leave the brothel, tired and sexed. I told her I would walk all the way home, but I did not do that. I got some fish pieces from the tuck shop down the road, and then when I walked past the bus terminal, I realized, yeah, for sure, I should totally just catch the bus home. And while I'm waiting out, a young fellow calls me over. He is a refugee of the American war with the Middle East. It is hard to know if he is waving me over, because he has eyes that cross outward. As I walk over, I need to make sure at least twice he isn't trying to get someone else's attention. Like, they cross over outwards. Like, it was real weird. He tells me he's waiting for a bus to Brisbane and needs $20 to get on it. I give him $5. I am now $25 behind on rent. He tells me I'm a genius for giving him $5. I tell him he's a genius for making it over here. He is disquieted by this fact. Not vocally, but resolutely. Eventually, I cannot take it. He keeps asking me for money, and I say, I have $2.50s that I need to save for my landlord. But he says, no, trust me. So extremely trust me, so extremely unfortunate that I cannot leave him there without what he needs to get home. And I get one of my 50s changed so he might get home to Brisbane and have a meal on the way. I love this sunburnt country. May she always be our shelter. May we always live in peace. Don't let those quotes get the better of us, though. We are a spacefaring species.
Yeah. That was